At our 10-year high school reunion, I showed up barefaced, wearing no more than $300 worth of clothes. A kid in my arms. And the broke ex-boyfriend I once dumped had become the CEO of some group or other, suited up and sitting right across from me. My older sister ditched her 3-year-old to go on vacation. My mum caught wind early and bolted faster than anyone. By the time I reacted, the toddler had already been delivered to my tiny studio. I opened my eyes and found us staring at each other. The nice-sounding excuse, I work from home, so watching a kid won't get in the way. Even a dog would turn up its nose at a 3-year-old. My niece has a pretty little face and the temperament of a tiny demon. Every night she keeps me awake. No knife needed, she kills me softly by singing in my ear. At 5:30 a.m., bleary-eyed, I get up to mix her formula and cook rice cereal, then crash until 6 in the evening. And that damn reunion starts at 6 sharp. 10 years out of high school, I've forgotten most of my classmates anyway. And besides, reunions are just for sizing each other up. You flash your designer bag, I outdo you with a luxury car. Boring and pointless. They brag about jobs and compare salaries. Classmate bonds basically mean scrounging for referrals to prop up a mediocre husband. I sat a while at my vanity, then gave up. I pulled on a white cotton tee my niece had already abused, and a pair of grey pants, didn't even bother with tinted moisturizer, and walked out with my dark circles on full display. Oh, and I brought my 3-year-old niece. Pay for one, feed two, brilliant. I stepped into the private room and spotted designer bags oh so casually placed on the table with their logos facing out, and sleeves tugged just enough to flash a 6-figure watch. The moment I walked in, every head swiveled my way, trying to excavate the girl I used to be from my face. "Belle, you finally made it, come sit over here." A pretty girl broke the silence, pulling out a chair for me with great enthusiasm. My octopus of a niece clung to me as I strolled over, calm as can be. The second I sat, whispers started up at the next table. "Is that your daughter? She's adorable, her eyes look just like yours. The little tyrant bullies anything that breathes at home, but confronted with strangers she clams up, burrowing into my arms like an angel." "Yeah," I said. Seeing me admit it, she smiled even wider. "Married so early? Is your husband home? Why isn't he helping with the kid?" I lifted my chopsticks, snagged a chunk of lobster, and said, utterly unfazed, "Divorced." He was already fooling around when the baby was a month old. We were in court for a year. As soon as I said it, I felt people scoot their chairs a little farther away. They turned their heads and started talking stocks and banks, and nobody touched a thing. I spun the Lazy Susan and ate whatever I wanted. Then out came lion's head meatballs, my favorite at this hotel. But before I could even reach for the turntable, the girl in the black dress moved fast and spun the meatballs to the other side. "Jason, I remember you used to love these. They're good here, try one?" The name was so familiar that the whole room went quiet. It was the only word I really caught. I poked at the prawns in my bowl and slowly looked up right at the ex I led on and dumped back in high school. He looked nothing like the boy in a white shirt from back then. Jason wore a black suit, all business, like he'd come straight from a meeting. I'd vaguely heard my dad mention a new internet company and a guy named Jason over the years, but I didn't think much of it. Who knew the broke kid would climb all the way up here? "No, thanks," Jason said, his long fingers resting on the Lazy Susan in a way that was oddly pleasing to the eye. Only when the plate stopped right in front of me did I pull my gaze off his hand. The girl in black clearly hadn't expected that. Neither had I. But I'm thick-skinned. I picked up a meatball and dug in. "Right, Belle. You two used to be a little couple, so you both love lion's head, huh?" I speared the meatball and pretended not to hear. "Jason never liked them. I always did. He used to buy them for me at the cafeteria because they were so popular. There was a limit, and I could eat several at a time, so I had my boyfriend snag me an extra." Whatever Jason replied, I missed it. My little gremlin started acting up again. I fumbled a bottle out of my backpack and asked a server to show me where to get hot water. When I came back, The gremlin had not, in fact, waited nicely in her seat. "She's over here, Belle. Your daughter is so cute." Bottle in hand. I circled half the table and finally found my niece hugging someone's leg, her round face planted on his knee. I managed an awkward smile, lifted my head, and saw whose leg she'd latched onto my ex. What a way to make trouble for me. Back when we broke up, everyone thought I dumped Jason, but it was actually him who said the words. To save face, I didn't correct the story and let the rumor stand. Looking back, it's ridiculous what's face worth anyway. So I brazened it out and peeled my niece off his leg. "Say, Uncle," I told her, cradling her in my arms, beaming at Jason. I don't know how everyone else ate, but I ate great, and even fed the little tyrant a few egg dumplings. At the door, the show started up again. Keys to million-dollar cars accidentally flashed. Someone's husband arrived wearing a statement watch to pick her up. I yawned and held my gremlin's hand. "Anyone picking you up, Belle? If not, ride with me?" It was the girl, in the black dress again. I vaguely remembered her, probably our Chinese class rep back then. Yep. My answer seemed to catch her off guard for a second. "Good. I was going to offer you a ride if no one was coming. Are you still on the west side?" 10 years ago, the west side meant money. Now the north side's booming, and even fancier. So I'd moved north, of course. I shook my head and thanked her. As classmates trickled out, it ended up just me and the gremlin by the door. Our driver, Uncle Carlos, had gone to pick up Dad, and the rideshare I called was stuck in traffic. I squatted down, propped my chin on my hands, and waited. A suit jacket, warm from his body, fell over my shoulders. I turned and saw Jason. "I'll take you two home." No need, someone's coming. No way was I getting in his car. So I held up the app screen. Cancelled. In the end, I still took my gremlin and climbed into Jason's car. The driver had cancelled for taking too long, so I had no choice but to hitch a ride. 10 years later, Jason was still Jason, maybe even better looking. Straight brows, bright eyes, the sort that could still make your heart skip on a second glance. We were both quiet the whole way until he pulled up in front of my little studio. "You live here." My ex walked away with nothing and left me this place. It just slipped out. I regretted it instantly and checked his expression in the rear view. Jason smiled and asked, "Belle, do you know your tell when you lie?" How would I know my own tell? With him calling me out like that, my face burned. So from the first thing I said at the table, he knew I was lying? "Mom," the cub in my arms suddenly called out, pawing at my collar and squirming. I finally pinned her down and had a bright idea. "She's only 3. How could she lie?" "Baby, what do you call me? Say it again." I ruffled her hair and, satisfied, listened to her call me Mum one more time. "Sorry, sis. Borrowing your kid for a moment." When I looked up again, Jason's expression had gone cold, like frost settling over his face. I hugged my niece and watched him drive away without a word. The little beast kept wiggling, and my big sister Anna's car sat not far off. She'd started calling Mum the second she spotted her actual mum's car. I set her down and she toddled off toward Anna. No loyalty in this one. After all that time with me, I'd never heard her call me Mum once, but the mother who ditched her for a trip? That she called with all the sweetness in the world. "You met him already?" Anna, still in sunglasses, scooped up her daughter and walked toward me. I was baffled and had no idea what she meant. "Jason, you met ahead of schedule." "Well, how is he?" "What are you talking about?" "Dad's company had a recent project with Jason's, and Dad said he wanted to introduce you two. But I heard he had some unattainable first love from high school. Never got over her, still single." "You're not getting any younger. Give it a try." I was thunderstruck. Give it a try? Try and die. More like, so the divorced with a kid persona I put on, he saw through it from the start? My big-mouth dad had already spilled everything about me. A class reunion? You were high school classmates? Then you must know who his first love was, right? I forced a shaky smile and pointed a finger at myself. You? Anna frowned, eyeing my outfit up and down. Guess he's got unique taste. Seriously, do you have to roast your own sister like that? Resistance was useless 3 days after the reunion. I was pushed straight in front of Jason before I left. Anna nagged endlessly, insisting I wear proper makeup. That eye makeup's way too heavy. Do you even know what first love means? She scrubbed me down and did a fresh, clean look, then dragged me to the car herself. He's Dad's business partner, and you clearly like him. So this time, behave yourself. The destination was a cafe uptown. Anna dropped me off and peeled away the second I closed the door. Terrified I might bolt, I stayed put, breathing in her exhaust, then looked up and locked eyes with Jason through the glass. Jason wasn't chatty back then, and he isn't now. I used to treat him like my personal diary. But what guts do I have now to unload on President Jason? After years as a freelance illustrator, my social skills had rusted. No way could I bluff like I did at the reunion. You really don't want to see me that badly? He sighed with a hint of helplessness. No. I waved my hands. It's just been so long I don't know what to say. Want to talk about that lousy ex-husband of yours? I looked up in confusion, catching the smile tugging at Jason's lips. The one who fooled around and walked away with nothing in the divorce? What? What's there to say about that? I stammered, grabbing my glass and downing cold water, which cleared my head a bit. Jason signaled the waiter to swap it for warm water. My stomach was weak back in high school, eat a little too much, and I'd get sick, always popping antacids like candy. And yet I loved spicy food, loved cold food. Jason was the one who kept me in line, eating with me every meal, hunting down things that were both tasty and good for me. Looking back, he treated me pretty well. For a teenage romance, we actually clicked. I never did figure out why Jason broke up with me. My thoughts drifted until the waiter arrived with coffee and pastries. No coffee for me, but every pastry landed in front of me. I picked a pale blue macaron and was startled it tasted exactly like the ones from years ago. That dessert shop had moved before we even graduated. Now, tasting that same flavor, I looked at Jason in surprise. Same chef, he said, gaze locked on me like no one else existed. I looked for him for a long time and found him. He always made big things sound casual. I'd tried almost every cafe in town and never found that taste again. Jason must have spent years tracking down the chef tucked away in this little coffee shop. Belle, 10 years later, you still like them, and I still like you. Would you still want to be with me? I froze mid-bite of a pale yellow macaron, staring at him. Through his eyes, I saw the Jason from back then, the ordinary white shirt, yet dazzling to me. Then why did you break up with me? Back then, I first heard of Jason through my best friend. He was the math genius. I'd already started slacking off after getting into this top high school, hovering in the middle. The first time I talked to Jason was just to copy his homework. He didn't refuse. He let me. But once I became his girlfriend, he changed, started teaching me instead. Thanks to him, I scraped into a decent local college. I know myself. I'm no great beauty, but dressed up I was passable. Jason's homework was always reserved in advance. One day I snatched it right before the rep collected it, racing to copy as fast as I could. Flipping through his neat notebook, I sighed without thinking. Jason, if you were my boyfriend, that'd be perfect. Okay, the second half of my joke. Then I'd get first dibs on your homework died in my throat. From that day on, like a dream, Jason became my boyfriend. In my memories, he's always patient, standing in long cafeteria lines, explaining problems to me again and again. So that day in the hallway, when he stood against the light and said we were done, I froze for ages, clutching the little gift I'd brought him. Now, seeing him again, that unanswered question returned. Why? Because you didn't like me. Jason slid a slice of cake toward me. Not enough, anyway. I speared the strawberry on top and remembered my so-called confession. That was just a joke. 10 years is a long time. but every moment with Jason is still vivid. You loved the fruit bowls from Left Street, had to eat lion's head at the cafeteria. I loved spicy food and cold drinks, even though your stomach couldn't handle it. Maybe being with me was just a whim, but I was all in. I envied everyone who could laugh and talk loudly with you. I wondered if someday I could be like that too, close enough to really reach you. The day you confessed to me was the luckiest day of my life. For once, heaven heard me and sent me the girl I loved most. Word by word, Jason stripped away what little confidence I had left. If he'd asked me back then whether I liked him, I'd have had to admit, regretfully, not enough. A throwaway joke, but he'd treasured it, carried it happily for so long. Jason drove me back to my apartment. Before I got out, he asked if I'd changed my number. Yeah. After graduation, I went to an art show and got pickpocketed. I held my breath nervously, then saw him exhale like he'd been holding it for years. I thought all this time, you just didn't want to see me. I never didn't want to see you. My voice was soft, but Jason caught it. Then I'll see you next time? Belle. His words carried a smile, and it hit me. I'd walked right into his trap. My usually quick, clever brain turned to mush around him. Step by step led along. The moment I got home, I received a friend request from Jason. The profile pic was the same as years ago, the little penguin at the aquarium, the one I'd snapped. He was still using the number I'd helped him get. My heart itched. I rolled onto the bed, face buried in the covers. No sooner had I accepted than his message popped up. "Want to see the art exhibit Saturday, Belle? It's that painter you like." No. It was the first time I'd turned him down since we reconnected. But I had other plans. The second I saw his profile pic, the idea hit me. I wanted to retrace our old steps, see if this time I might really fall for him. "I want to go to the aquarium to see that little penguin." "Okay," Jason replied instantly. Short and sure. On aquarium day, I dressed up in my usual style, then at the last second swapped into a pale yellow dress I hardly ever wore. The moment I opened his car door, I couldn't help but laugh. Jason wore a khaki trench coat, and without planning it, we both ended up in outfits that looked like the ones we wore back then. It felt like time had rewound a few years, as if nothing had changed. The aquarium was still the same, though there were more penguins now. I searched everywhere but couldn't find the one with the heart-shaped white patch. "Over there." Jason tilted his head, and when I followed his gaze, I finally spotted the old grandpa penguin. "How do penguins walk?" A line of kids holding red flags followed their teacher. The moment she asked, one kid stepped forward, pressed his arms to his sides, fingers together like wings, and waddled side to side. He nailed it adorable enough to earn the teacher's praise. I turned back just as an ice cream appeared in front of me. Jason cleared his throat, meeting my questioning look. "You can have one today." Holding the ice cream, I glanced at the penguin grandpa munching on fish and suddenly got an idea for mischief. "How do penguins walk?" Jason's quick reflexes as a math genius didn't fail him. He lifted his arms like wings and waddled toward me, step by step. I laughed so hard I nearly doubled over, ice cream in hand. The move looked cute on kids, but on a 6-foot guy like Jason, it was ridiculous. "Teacher Isabel, why won't you praise me?" Jason bent slightly, looking up at me with mock disappointment. "You're awesome!" I gave him a thumbs up with my ice cream smeared hand. Jason deftly pulled out a napkin to wipe it clean, then smoothly slipped his fingers around mine. The moment he tucked our hands into his pocket, my heart skipped. 10 years ago at the aquarium, I hadn't even looked at him. I'd been too busy photographing penguins. We didn't say anything suggestive, but the air between leaving and returning was undeniably different. Sitting in the passenger seat, I realized for the first time how short the drive home was. Soon I'd have to part with Jason. "What are you thinking about?" he asked at a red light, catching me gazing out the window. "I wish this road were longer," I sighed, without thinking. "Why?" Jason clearly knew what I meant, but pressed for an answer. "So I could spend more time with you." I propped my chin on my hand, the penguin charm bracelet he'd bought me dangling. "I'm honored," he said. The very next day, Jason was honored to land another date with me. This time it wasn't for fun, it was to visit his company. He got delayed by a sudden meeting, but since I had my car, I drove over myself. In the parking lot, I bumped into the class rep in the black dress, trailed by a slightly chubby man. Belle? After all the nonsense I'd spouted at the reunion, I never thought I'd run into them again. You look gorgeous today. I almost didn't recognize you. I almost didn't recognize her, either. A little embarrassed, I shifted my Chanel bag behind me. You look great too, I smiled. Jason's company is doing so well. My husband's been in a related field for years. I thought it'd be great to introduce them. He's really eager to grow here. And you? Baby's not at home? You came to see Jason too? Classic class rep. Her timid, probably unemployed husband was suddenly a hot commodity in her story. I want to grow here too. Maybe find my kid a stepdad. The words slipped out before I thought. Facing her shocked expression, I could only smile politely and make my exit. Just as I pulled out of the lot, I spotted Jason waiting at the entrance. In CEO romances, the heroine always takes the private elevator on her first visit. And then the rival says, "That's reserved for the president only." Jason naturally took my hand as we walked inside. This president has no private elevator. Will Miss Isabel still be my heroine? I couldn't pretend not to care. Daytime dates with Jason, nighttime dreams of our past, it was all too much. The more I thought about it, the more my heart stirred, and I cursed my teenage self for being so clueless. I hooked my pinky in Jason's palm. Depends on how you behave. Jason still had work to do. A real president wasn't like in the novels. He didn't spend every second orbiting the heroine. I sat in his office playing Snake, with snacks and a steaming cup of soy milk laid out for me. Today the snake was obedient. I sped it up, devouring everything until it grew huge, only to be killed by a scrawny little one. Glancing up, I caught sight of an illustration on the wall. Familiar. I leaned closer. A cat tangled in yarn, all four paws caught, vivid and cute, and signed in the corner with my pen name. It hit me. That was the first illustration I ever sold in college. Less than 1,000 yuan, barely a blip in my account, but I bragged about it to the whole family group chat. I never thought I'd see it again here, in Jason's office. Stepping outside, I saw another piece on the wall. Mine too. This one was from when I'd gained a little fame. I'd followed a trend and auctioned it off for tens of thousands. With that money, I bought my little apartment and began my happy single life. Turns out those 10 years without Jason, he'd still been quietly there. Bored. Jason rubbed his temples, stepping out of his office. "These are all mine," I said, voice trembling, pointing at one. "Of course the president's walls can only hold the heroine's work." Jason tilted his head, smiling. "But I've got one I like even more. Want to see?" Before I could answer, he clasped my hand and led me inside. He opened a drawer and pulled out a fragile scrap of notebook paper. Framed like treasure, scrawled across it were equations with doodled faces and stick figure poses. It was my masterpiece from 10 years ago when Jason assigned me homework I couldn't finish. I'd doodle instead. He caught me and confiscated it. Now its creases were smoothed, preserved like a jewel. I had a gift for Jason too. Years ago, before he broke up with me, I'd learned needle felting. Started with a simple carrot, then tried animals. The little penguin I made for him took 3 days and a jabbed finger, but I never gave it to him. By the time I realized, one wing had fallen off and an eye had gone missing. After that, I shoved the supplies in a drawer and never touched them again. Now, the regret returned. I wanted to try again. So I bought new materials and started over. Not too hard, not too easy. I worked off and on for days before it was done. The tutorial penguin was chubby and dopey, but mine came out skinny, dressed in a little suit, with white fluff forming an upside-down heart. While making it, I was full of energy. When the time came to give it to him, though, I got shy. Jason set down his papers. "Something you want to say?" "No." I shook my head, fingers twisting my hem. "Then you've got something for me." His tone was so certain, I wondered if I'd given myself away. "How do you know?" "Gotcha," he said, flashing a rare, smug grin. "Fine, but only because you asked." I pulled out the tiny felt penguin. "Looks like me." Jason nodded seriously, studying it. Minutes later, I saw it on his Moments feed. The background switched to showcase the little felt penguin. He'd stood it neatly on his desk and even given it a leaf hat. I covered my face. How childish could he be? A week later, I took Jason to meet my parents. The moment Dad saw Jason, he launched into work talk and wouldn't stop. Mum, convinced no pie could possibly fall from the sky onto my lap, pulled me into the kitchen to grill me on what kind of love potion I'd used. "It's because your daughter's amazing. Your daughter's amazing, okay?" I shot back. Mom shook her head and sighed. "Poor Jason. So young and already blind. Belle's a well-known illustrator now, more than good enough for Jason." Anna winked at me for once, actually saying something decent. Then she dragged me to another corner and asked straight up if I was being forced. "You two got together this fast? Is there some contract, like a family arrangement?" I rolled my eyes. They've all clearly read more CEO romances than I have. He likes me, I like him. That's all there. Island, Anna clapped a hand over her mouth to hide her giggle. I turned and found Jason standing right behind me. It was the first time I'd openly admitted liking him. After dinner, we took a walk. "I'm meeting your parents this weekend," he said. "I got something ready. But think about what else they'd like." Jason thought seriously. "Whatever you pick is fine. Not good enough." I stopped. "What if your parents don't like me? They met you ages ago. They already liked you." "When?" "Not telling." "Stingy." I let go of his hand and pretended to speed up, but he quickly caught up. His warm trench coat wrapped around me completely. "I'm holding Belle. This isn't a dream anymore," he whispered at my ear. Our engagement banquet was set for early spring. We hadn't planned on inviting many people, just relatives and close friends. But someone leaked the news to our class group, and the once-dead chat exploded. Isabel and Jason. For real. Didn't they say Isabel was already married with a 3-year-old kid? So Jason's rushing to be a stepdad? I'd muted the group ages ago, so I missed all the chaos. Instead, an old best friend who transferred schools sophomore year messaged me. "You and Jason have a 3-year-old? Why didn't you tell me? Where did these ridiculous rumors even come from?" I explained everything, and she yelled over the phone. "Isabel! It took you this long to finally wake up?" That night, the newly awakened me dreamed Jason had me pinned to a desk, teaching me twisted functions. A nightmare. Really. I almost stayed buried under the covers the next morning. The alarm blared 5 times before I finally dragged myself up. Still half asleep while brushing my teeth, it hit me. Today was license day. Jason's car was already waiting downstairs. Breakfast inside. The pork buns, who knows where he found them, had thin skin, juicy filling, and weren't greasy at all. He didn't start the car until I finished my soy milk and touched up my lipstick. I clutched the seatbelt, heart racing, nerves kicking in. "Nervous?" he asked. I nodded. The next second, his hand covered mine. "I'm right here." "Jason, maybe I don't love you quite as much as you love me, but I want you to know I really, really do love you. Not a love stacked up from meatballs and macarons. It's loving you the way you teach me problems, the way you waddle like a penguin. All of it, my Jason." Jason steered into a nearby lot, and the moment the car stopped, he unbuckled and pulled me into his arms. "I've been waiting for those words since the day we were 17.